Recent reports saturating online describing a so-called chimpanzee civil war in Kibale National Park have drawn public attention, but conservation experts say that the behavior being witnessed is part of the natural social dynamics of chimpanzees in the world. Speaking on the matter, the chief warden of Kibale Conservation Area, Mr. Tibesigwa John Justice, explained that just like human beings, chimpanzees also experience disagreements, competitions within their groups, often arising from territorial disputes, mating rights, leadership struggles, or access to resources such as food and water.
This is just a normal behavior of chimpanzees. As you might know, chimpanzees are very, very related to human beings in terms of the genes, sharing sometimes up to about 98% of the genes with humans. So many of the things which we do as humans are also done by chimpanzees. So the so-called civil war is actually a normal behavior for apes. For chimpanzees, chimpanzees also develop conflict, just like humans also can develop conflict. It's not that this conflict necessarily is bad, but it is also part and parcel of the behavior of certain species, humans, but chimpanzees as well. And this conflict can be about many resources. They can conflict over space, where to live and stay. They can conflict over water, okay, to drink. They can conflict over food in the national park, but they also can conflict over mates for purposes of reproduction.
Kibale National Park remains one of the African most important tropical forests, known for its rich biodiversity and globally recognized chimpanzee population that continues to attract researchers, conservationists, and tourists from around the world. Dr. Margaret Kopsinge from Chimpanzee Research Department says chimpanzee research in Kibale goes beyond ordinary observation and requires patience, scientific monitoring, and close study of animal behaviors.
We generally look at chimpanzee behavior on a day-to-day basis, where we follow them from morning when they get out of their nest until evening when they go back to their night nest. It's mostly a behavioral process that we are following. When we follow the chimps, is we want to know what they are doing, what they are up to, and any other thing that we can know about them in their day-to-day lives. It gives us information that will help us make decisions. You may know, Mbogo community has the highest number of chimpanzees in the world. And so once they were hit with a flu, they lost a couple of chimps, around 25 or so, not the exact number, but close to that. And when they lost those chimpanzees, there was a bit of breaking happening around 2015. So the breaking happened where some chimpanzees spread to the west and others stayed in the central. And once it takes some time without the whole community coming together, we see that the chimps start creating different territories for themselves. So when the chimps spread and then they moved some to the south, some to the west, others to the central, a boundary was formed, whereby a few individuals that were seen crossing were killed, mostly the males. Males are not, you may know that chimps are philopatric. The males are philopatric, meaning they never move from one community to another. Once you move from one community to another, you're either killed, and in most cases you don't survive. But females are at legib. They can always move from one community to another, and mostly at adolescent stage. So when we see these divisions happen, what happened is once these divisions were coming up, males started crossing, were always killed. So we then knew that now a transmission is happening. And it took some couple of years just so to confirm, because with research it's not like a one night of we've seen them separate for 1 year, so we are good to go. And so with years, we saw that some males were not crossing and only females were crossing. And the other individuals in Central, they had their alpha male, Jackson, still taking over. And within the western side, Younger was also taking over. But one thing about Kibale itself is that the forests, the different figs of feeding trees that the chimps feed on. So in the west, where the new community was growing up, they didn't have as much feeding trees and much food like in the central. And so one of the things that help with reproduction is we need to have very many chimps having enough food. And so they had to, as a leader, the alpha male had to definitely push into the central region just so he can get some more food. And that's when we're now seeing the embryo fight and more killings happening. And now we conclude that yes, the separation has happened. And in simple terms, that is what you may call a civil war in a layman's language, but for us, we now conclude that a territory has been formed. Two groups have been independent. A previous group that was over 200 chimps now has separated.
Visitors continue to experience safe and memorable encounters with the primates under the guidance of trained personnel who monitor chimpanzee movements and behavior on the daily basis.
We have had our numbers, tourist numbers going up because of how we manage these, the tourism, the chimpanzees that are the biggest attraction for tourists to this national park.
Conservationists maintain that understanding natural animal behavior remains important in avoiding misinformation, noting that what some have termed as chimpanzee civil war is simply part of the normal interaction and survival patterns within wild chimpanzee communities. Scovium Cimento, reporting from Kibale National Park.